If you're the one that loses it or you're the one that acts irrationally, you're going to be the one that's in trouble.
Make sure it's aligned with your goals, because if it's not, you need to say no.
We're going to have a sponsorship in here for my OnlyFans.
Hello and welcome to the Two Brothers Podcast, the podcast for anyone looking to lead better. With your hosts, Joe.
Telling the truth is the least manipulative form of manipulation. Everybody manipulates. If you analyze every situation that you got upset about, and you look at the things that triggered that anger, and you actually said what got you angry out loud, you would think you were the most ridiculous, childish person all the time.
And Ryan.
Some people can be bullshitted, but then others can't be. And others go out of their way to try to trip you up and see how you handle it.
Yeah.
And if you handle it properly, that's a sale you're going to make. It's a relationship you're going to gain or build, or whatever it might be. A team member is going to look at you more respectfully now because of how you handled a situation, if you handle it properly.
On to the episode.
How's it going, Ryan?
It's going pretty well. What about you? Sunday night.
Yeah, it's Sunday night. Recording. Back in my house again. One last final week, I think, before I get my studio going. Get the studio back up and going. I started doing drywall about a week ago. I think I'm going to prime and paint either later tonight or tomorrow sometime. So I'm excited. A lot of big changes coming lately, so it's been good.
It's been pretty fun to watch the change at your place from where we started to what you've got going on out there now.
I'm glad I took pictures of everything last year before we started this whole podcast to what I started doing to get it ready to record to what it's going to be. It's going to be cool. But yeah, things are good. Had a good weekend with my kids and kind of ready, but not really ready for the work week.
Yeah, I'm not.
Back to the normal grind of everyday life. So speaking of the work week, we got an episode about roadblocks today, right?
Yeah, it kind of morphed into roadblocks after further conversations after I was asked a question. But yeah, I thought roadblocks was a good kind of coverall topic.
So you want to back up a little bit and go over the question at least?
So the question I was asked was, how do you not let the environment affect your motivation? Like, say people don't listen to you. How do you keep from getting a negative attitude and stopping your work to push forward? That one's a tough one to answer. I really had to think about that.
It is, and God, have I seen that. Negative attitudes, it's poisonous. Just in that context of the question, that negative attitudes can poison an entire company.
Yeah.
Can tear everybody down.
But yeah, so as an individual, how do you not let somebody else's or multiple other people's negative attitude or unwillingness to listen and work together affect you? How do you keep it from affecting you negatively? My response, after a lot of thought, and it's not not going to be anything that's easy to do, but you have to remind yourself of your goal, and you have to truly believe in it and use that positive attitude to continue to push towards that goal. This is where you have to dig deep and kind of produce your own motivation, your own ability to continue forward.
Yeah.
You have to look inside and figure out a different way to maybe have these conversations. It might not necessarily be you at fault. You're not necessarily the reason these people won't listen, but it is your responsibility to find out how to communicate clearly and attempt to the best of your ability to get them to work with you. If you can't, if you're not a leader, you have to escalate and say, hey, I'm trying. This is what's going on. You should have their support. If you don't, well, then it's probably not going to work anyways.
Yeah. How do you keep from getting a negative attitude and allowing that to dictate your attitude in the workplace, pretty much? How?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like you said, you have to, exactly like you said, dig deep, remind yourself of the bigger picture and what it is the end goal is and what you're working towards. And you can't let other people bring you down, but at the same time, you also have to be a realist and see if what their negative attitude is about. Is it legitimate? Is it something that somebody is seeing in the workplace that's causing them to have a negative attitude, like a very dark future for what they see in the company, which could just be somebody's interpretation of what they think is going on. I've seen a lot of bad attitudes or negative attitudes progress over time due to a lack of direction or an uncertainty in the future of a company. And that's what it stemmed from. Is, hey, things are slow, things are rocky here, there's a change in leadership or whatever. So that's what kind of caused a negative attitude in our workplace in the past. God, you really have to talk to people. If that's a tough one, man.
That's what I said.
It's all dependent on the situation, to be completely honest. I mean, can we back up a bit and talk about some of the different possibilities of what causes roadblocks in the workplace, or what might cause or lead to bad attitudes? I think that's a good place to start.
I don't want to get into what can cause bad attitudes, because that conversation could be never ending.
Correct, but we can break it down into several chunks, because bad attitudes, there could be people just that live with a negative attitude. I've been there before. I've been that fucking person and went into shit just with a bad attitude. So I get that.
Probably
I know
a reason for that attitude. At the end of the day, there's a reason for that attitude.
Correct. Is it a legitimate thing, or is it something else that you need to look into differently, you know? So is the negative attitude coming from uncertainty or questions that could be easily resolved by talking with the right people and just communicating? or is it legitimate concerns and there is bigger things going on that you don't see? So the negative attitude is absolutely justified, and it's a good red flag to get the fuck out of that situation. You following what I'm saying?
Yes.
Because like you said, some negative attitudes are justified. There's a reason for going into situations with a negative attitude.
I don't mistake what I said there. I was not saying bad attitudes are justified.
Right.
Because that would go against what we're preaching here. And yes, you might have a reason for your bad attitude, but it's also your responsibility to overcome that reason and have a positive attitude. I don't care what you went through. We all have shit we've dealt with. Get over it. Get away from your attitude and move forward.
Attitudes and emotions, yes, but being in a situation that is negative and you see a lot of bad shit and it's not working out, sometimes it's good to just be done with it. So sometimes
Agreed,
that attitude and the shit you're dealing with and why people have bad attitudes is a green flag that is a red flag you should be paying attention to, because it could be tipping you off to things that you should be aware of. But you still, I mean, if you, God, it's such.
I don't want to twist and turn this into a bunch of different what ifs. Think about just as an individual at any XYZ company, you have a leader who is positive. You have a good leader.
Yep.
You're trying to make different changes to make things better.
Okay.
But you have other coworkers who have bad attitudes, are resistant to the change. What do you do when you're constantly up against just bad people? Or we could take it a step further and say, as a leader, if you have individuals who are just absolutely resistant to change, what do you do? So let's take all the variables out of it and just look at the situation black and white for what they are.
One individual is having a bad attitude and causing issues in let's call it a healthy company, a healthy team.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so you have different team members who interact with them, and let's say that team member comes to you and says, "Hey, what do I do?"
I've told some people, kill them with kindness. Just
Yeah.
be as positive as you can possibly fucking be. Do not let people get under your skin, because the second people start noticing that they can infect you with their negative attitude and their attitude affects you in one way or another, they're going to keep doing that. And they're going to come to you and keep feeding into that.
I like that.
They see where their poison takes. So you have to maintain a positive attitude. Don't listen to the shit. If you feel like you need to talk to somebody else in the team about the negative attitude or the negativity that's being presented to you, you need to be very careful with the way that you talk to people and who you talk to about these issues, because if you bring up these negative viewpoints or whatever to the wrong person or mention it the wrong way, you could be spreading the exact same negative attitude regardless of your intentions with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you're gossiping.
Yeah, exactly. And even if your intentions are not to gossip and not to spread that kind of shit, it's very easy to go down that path and have it turn into that, or somebody takes it that way. And I've gotten myself in some pretty big... I've almost lost my job over that before, of talking to somebody.
Yeah, because it can turn into the he said, she said type of shit, and Stay away from gossip.
Yes. So gossip is a huge one with negative attitudes. Just avoid that shit. Avoid avoid negative talk about other people in the shop. Avoid if people start just bitching about the same person over and over and over again, you kind of just have to walk away from it because it's not going to do you any good. And if you start spreading that shit, it spreads like wildfire. So avoid gossip, avoid negative people. A big thing, so something I've gotten really good at is typically somebody that has a negative attitude, you're not, if you're working with somebody with a negative attitude, you're not going to be the only person that sees that or is affected by it. Or somebody might seek you out. And like I said, if they start feeding into you with negative thoughts, negative whatever, and you start taking that on and they seek you out for that, or they cause problems, or they're just preventing any progress, but other people seem to be able to make headway with that person, take some time to talk to those people and say, hey, I cannot seem to get through to this person. They don't want to work with me, but you seem to be able to talk to them. What is it? How do you approach that person? How do you approach situations where they don't fight? You don't get a fight. You don't have the negative attitude. You don't have somebody fighting it. And usually somebody's going to be able to give you some tips and tricks and say, hey, this is what works for me. This is how I present situations or issues to this person, or how I present change to this person. And sometimes it's just who that information is coming from. So if you need to filter information from one person to another just to get your point across, do it. If you cannot get through to somebody and you cannot talk to somebody, but you know if you can talk to somebody else and you can say, hey, I need to get this information to this person and get them to change the way that they're doing this, but they fight me on every aspect of it. Can you talk to them? It's very likely a good way to at least get in. You can start making changes. You can start pushing that. They can get through to that person, and then you can watch how they interact with that person and start to use those tricks to work with that person yourself.
Possibly. I do want to add that it may just be a seniority thing.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
it may require that you just escalate it. Look, I've tried. I need you to help out.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with escalating if it gets to that point and your leader has empowered you to try something. Give it your best shot. Ask for help. And then if you have to, okay, I need you to step in and do this because it's just not working for me.
Yeah. Big thing is keep your cool too. Don't let them get to you. Don't let them get the best of you and your emotions. Because no matter how toxic or negative a single individual is, if you're the one that loses it, or you're the one that acts irrationally or gets worked up about a situation and they don't, you're going to be the one that's in trouble.
Yep.
Yeah, it's huge. Be very careful of how you approach things and keep your cool. If you have to walk away from somebody because it's not working, you can't get through to them, that's the best thing to do. Walk away from them and, like you said, escalate it. Say, hey, it's out of my hands now. There's nothing more I can do.
Yeah.
I might have told this story before. And I think I did because one of the guys at work brought it up. We were doing an install once and we had some scrap wire and everything that we will recycle our scrap wire. We were off-site doing an install and things were slow at our shop. People were trying to milk these projects so they had hours to work and things to do. we're also still trying to make a profit as a company. I was in charge of leading the electrical side of everything on that install. I had guys walking around picking up all these scrap pieces of wire, going through the entire work cell, picking up scrap pieces of wire, tiny chunks and everything, putting them all in carts so they could spend the next half an hour bringing them back and forth to the shop so we could recycle that scrap wire, because we might get $250 to $400 for a full bin of scrap wire. I said, can we hold up for a second? I said, why? We need to get this scrap wire. I said, let's take some time to think about like what we're doing here. Like $250 to $300 maybe for a bin of wire, but we're going to take the next 45 minutes cleaning up all this scrap wire, loading it into the truck, driving it down the road to our shop, unloading it from the truck to load it into the scrap bin, and it might actually only be $15 worth of scrap wire that we're actually saving. So 45 minutes of time at whatever our hourly rate is for the $15 worth of scrap that we're doing, this does not make any sense. Let's stop taking care of the scrap, throw it in the garbage here, because we're wasting money if we're trying to save this. So stop picking up the scrap. Let's throw it in the garbage. Let's move on to something that's more productive. And I got bitched out for it. I had a guy scream at me, "You are not my fucking manager. Quit acting like you're in charge of everybody. Go fuck yourself. I don't have to listen to you." And I tried very quickly to de-escalate and say, "Hey man, I get it. I hear you, but this does not make any sense. And I'm just trying to help everybody because I want to make more money. I want a bigger bonus at the end of the year. I want everybody to benefit from making a profit. So let's not waste money where we're obviously wasting money." And he just wanted to fight it. So I walked away, called up my manager. I said, "Hey man, just want you to know what happened. Here's what happened. Here's where we're at. How do you want me to handle this? What do you want me to do?" He's like, "Oh, we'll deal with it. Don't worry about it. Just don't save any scrap wire. Tell the guys that I said not to worry about it." All right, cool. I went and let them know. They're fine because a manager told them not to do it. That's all he needed. So like you said, wanted somebody with more seniority, someone in a management position to tell them what to do, not somebody that was just working there. Which, fair enough, I get it. Big picture, this guy had some things going on with one of his kids, and there were medical things going on where he had been in the hospital and had surgeries going on and everything like that with his kid. So turns out there were other things going on that I was unaware of, and tensions were already high. So that negative attitude was just compounded on all the stress and everything he had going on at home. And I didn't know that. My intentions were never bad, but it was the wrong time, the wrong place, just a mixture of everything. So it's not, sometimes it's situational, it depends on the situation, and sometimes it's just a bad day with people. But yeah, constant shit like that sometimes you just can't work with people. And sometimes, like you said, you have to go to management and say, "Hey, I've done everything I can do.
I've tried. You're right.
If you can give me a better way to handle this, I'm all for it. But at this point, I have exhausted everything that I can think to do. I am not causing anything to get any better. So it's time that I walk away from it."
Right.
And either management's going to handle it and they're going to separate you because you obviously can't work together right now, or they're not going to handle it, and then you have your answer. You're going to have to deal with it, or you're going to have to get the fuck out. And sometimes that's what you got to do.
Yeah. Any other ways you can keep the negativity at bay?
I really think that that covers it. I mean,
I do too.
maintain a positive attitude and keep cool. Don't let people infect you with negative attitudes, and don't let your emotions get the best of you. Yeah, if find someone that can get through to them better, whether that's management or somebody else in the workplace, and through that they should be able to either coach you or work with them so you guys can get through it. And if none of that works, escalate to management.
We would like to take a second to thank all of you for listening. You are our motivation. We feel strongly about our message, and you help provide the needed strength to push through the tougher times. It is with your support that we are able to continue spreading the belief in positivity, empowerment, and respect. Please show your support and hit that subscribe button. Let's help each other reach our goals. We appreciate it more than you know. Any other questions? I came up with a few my own questions. I don't know if you did, but what is a roadblock?
Kind of touched on that right before we even started, I guess. And it's anything that prevents you from making forward progress. It's
almost identical to what I wrote.
Yeah.
Kind of a simple question, I guess, to answer, but we don't need much explanation behind it. I couldn't expand on more than the one sentence I wrote. But
yeah.
No, I think you nailed it. Anything that gets in your way and stops you from reaching your goal. How do you deal with roadblocks? And we've kind of already touched on that, but this, I guess, is where I want to open it up to a little more of pick your poison.
So this is where,
and you mentioned it earlier. I heard you mention, I think, exactly what I have written down in that situation specific.
Yes, and that's where I think it's important to, if we could break roadblocks down, the potential roadblocks that you might encounter. I have written down pretty much four big potential roadblocks that you might encounter in the workplace or in life. First one, the big one, mental and personal roadblocks. So anything in your own head preventing you from doing something, preventing you from trying something new, from talking to somebody, you thinking that you aren't deserving of something, those are all huge ones. Second one is personnel roadblocks, other people outside of your own mental control. So whether, like we were just talking about, somebody with a negative attitude, somebody that is difficult to work with, somebody that argues with people and just, prevents you from making forward progress, either as a person or as a team as a whole.
Yeah.
Third one I have is management roadblocks. So if management is holding you back, preventing you from getting information that you need, just to, the best phrase for it is cutting off their nose to spite their face. Management will hold people back out of spite or whatever, and it just hurts everybody and fucks them over in the long run.
Right.
But their management's a big one that can be a huge roadblock.
How could you classify that for like your personal life? Is there? That's what I was sitting here trying to think about. Like, what would that be in your personal life? Because you mentioned like mental.
Very, very
you mentioned
easy.
personnel or other people. So what would management be in your personal life?
Management, I would say before the
That'd be
age
your
of
spouse or
before the age of 25, I would say your parents. And I say
Parents,
20 I
spouse.
say 25 because until you establish yourself and let your parents know that they are no longer in control of making decisions for you, which I think some people it takes a little bit longer and some people do it quickly, but I would say up until 25 your parents are still going to try and sway you in one direction or another, or try to pull you or push you in directions that they want.
Yeah, and even just up until you have a spouse, they'll probably, that's when you start to kind of establish your own a little bit
Yep.
more, I guess.
And then after that, or even before, if you get married at a younger age, it's your spouse, your husband, your wife, whatever, whoever you're dating, whoever is making big life decisions for you, or has a say in the life decisions you're making and the progress you're making long term in your life. People that you see every single day on a daily basis that have a big impact. So parents or spouse would be management in your personal
I
life.
agree. That's kind of what I thought of too. So
And then the fourth one I have is financial roadblocks. And that one speaks for itself. So let me go back to can you repeat the question that you asked?
how do you deal with roadblocks? And that's where we had already mentioned that they're situation specific, and we started to break down the different types of roadblocks you may encounter. And so, yeah, you had immediately related it to the workplace, but you also had like ties to the personal. So I wanted to carry that on through all of them.
For sure. So how do you deal with roadblocks? I'd say at that point, like you said, situational dependent. I think we have to break
It's hard to kind of nail that down.
It's funny though, because I actually have this split down on three of the four on how to navigate each of these. So
Okay, and I was going to say,
perfect.
I wrote down a process that regardless of the situation, you can kind of follow that process and get to the conclusion that you need.
So what do you got? Because I want to see how that ties into what I have here.
So this is for any roadblock, regardless of the situation. Identify the root of the problem. And I'm not talking surface level bullshit problem. I'm talking real meat and potatoes. Get to the bottom of the root of the problem. Do some soul searching, whatever you need to. Dig into that problem and figure out what is actually going on.
And
Just because
be
somebody's
honest with
listening.
yourself.
Yes, exactly. Just because somebody's listening or looking at you doesn't mean they're hearing your message. Why aren't they hearing your message? Figure out why. Are you not communicating clearly? What can you do better? What can you do differently? Anyways, dig into the actual root of the problem. From there, identify what can you do differently to ensure a better outcome. Don't point fingers unless you're pointing it back at yourself. What can you do to ensure a better outcome? The third step is find your path forward. Doesn't matter what the other people are doing. They're going to be other people. They're always going to be other people. You can't control them. You can only control you. So what is your path forward? What is your solution to the root of that problem? That was the process I kind of identified.
Yeah, that sums it up. If we break it down, I'll break it down a little bit more by each of the problems. But that pretty much sums it up. So for the first group, mental and personal roadblocks, first of all, read books. If you are struggling with a problem, there's a book out there that's been written that has likely solutions to the problem that you're dealing with, or might help you identify problems that you might not even been aware of were problems until you read them on paper. Because I've been there before. Talk to people. You're your own worst enemy. So talk to people and be honest with people and tell people, like, hey, this is what I'm struggling with. I don't know if I'm making the right decision. I don't know what I'm doing here. And just be honest. Talk to the right people. Somebody's going to give you feedback, an opinion, or tell you that it's all in your head because they see more potential in you than you possibly see. So that's pretty much identify the root of the problem, identify what you can do differently, read books, talk to people. Don't point fingers, because mental and personal roadblocks are all mental and personal to you. So
Right.
the only person you can point a finger at is yourself. Then find your path forward. Find something that works. And the last thing I have is just go for it. Just try it.
Yeah.
What's the worst that can possibly happen? As far as personnel roadblocks, like you said, identify the root of the problem. Talk to people. Discuss with management or others in the team. Try to verify that the roadblock is something that is commonly seen as opposed to a one-sided viewpoint. Because if it's a one-sided thing and you're the only person experiencing this problem, in that case, the problem is likely you. So identify the root of the problem. What can you do differently? Talk to people. You'll find out, like we were saying before, talk to somebody else that can handle that person differently or in a better manner than you can, and find out how they approach that person, and you can get solutions. Don't point fingers, like I said. You might find out that everybody else has the exact same problem with that same person, and it's a personnel problem that you can't control, and at that point, management's got to do their thing and deal with it. Find your path forward. If you got to talk to management, you got to talk to management. If you have new skills and tactics and tricks that work to help you with that personnel, then great, you already have the problem. So yeah, you nailed it, dude. That's perfect. Management roadblocks.
I tried to even elaborate on it, and I can't.
No. Management roadblocks. Talk to management. Escalate to higher management to discuss the issue. If you present the issue, you have to tell somebody what the problem is, and management's either going to help you solve the problem because they didn't know that it was a problem, or they're going to push back because they are the problem. And at
Right,
that
just
point,
like we've said before, sometimes you have to coach up.
Yes.
Hopefully you're in an organization where they're willing to listen and go, oh, okay, I didn't realize you felt like this. Let me see what I can do to change your mind.
And that is how management should be in
Right,
every
but most people,
single
their
aspect.
egos are in their way.
Yeah.
Ever since we kind of first talked about that, I don't remember what episode that first came up or when we first started talking about ego, but ever since we've discussed that, I can't believe how much I notice it and how much I'm starting to see more people talking about ego.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like we said it a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago now, or I did. I feel like we're in this kind of renaissance right now of thinking. Maybe it's just the different environment I'm surrounding myself with, but I seem to notice a lot of people questioning things more than they have in the past.
Yeah. Yeah, in the last couple of years, I've seen the same thing. People that I work with, friends that I have, paying more attention to that kind of stuff.
But yeah, so the ego thing is just,
Dude, it's wild. You can pick it out, and every time somebody gets angry, why? Why are you getting angry?
yeah.
Who hurt you? What happened? Why are you upset about this? No, nobody was even attacking you, but you're getting upset. Chances are it's you. And management's no better. They're just in a higher role. They're just people
Right.
too, man. So everybody's got fragile egos. And not everybody, but a lot of people have fragile egos. So if that's the case and management is that way and they don't want to change the way that they are, or they don't see that they are the problem, that's when you have to escalate. You have to go to the next person and say, hey, look, I'm trying to make things better. I'm trying to work with this person, but they're not doing their job. They will not see it. And that's all you can do with management. If that doesn't work, I've said it before, quit. Same goes with your parents, with a spouse. Talk to them, try to make it better. If it doesn't make it better and they try to just deny every single thing that they've done and don't, I hate the whole validating your feelings and everything, but at the same time, like, everything that I'm bringing to you I'm bringing to you because it's a problem. If you want to ignore me, there's nothing I can do about it at this point in time. I have to walk away from you because you will not see it my way. You will not see my point of view. You will not see anything that I have to say. So it is what it is. So if that's with a spouse, if that's with parents, if that's with management, spouse and parents, you can't go to somebody else. You can, but you're going to go to your spouse's parents or your parents' parents. You're not going to fucking get anywhere, likely.
Right.
Because chances are spouse's parents or parents' parents all caused everything to be in the same, caused those people to be the same, the way that they are now.
Right.
So you can't coach up at that. If you can't coach up with your parents or your spouse and nothing's going to change and they don't see it differently, you got to quit. Just be done. Worst case scenario, but try to work it out. It's wild how much that just applies to everything. You can cut people out. You can get divorced. You can walk away from family that doesn't serve you because they're just negative. You can do it too. It's no different than the workplace.
I agree with everything you've said. You just make it sound very simple. And I want to point out that certain decisions aren't as simple as you make them sound. There should be extensive thought and effort put into trying to solve the problem at hand. But
yes,
if you have tried extensively to the best of your ability and there is no give, no change, like you're saying, then okay.
Yeah, you don't.
I just wanted to make sure that was clear. You make it sound almost effortless. If it don't work out, fuck it, just move on. I want to just make sure, because I know you don't feel like that either.
No. You have to, especially when it comes to spouses, parents, people that, like, your job, you could quit, you can find another job. There's other jobs out there. Sure,
but the grass isn't always greener.
No, brown spots are in different places, man.
So make sure you think those through.
Now, the exact same thing goes with your marriage or your relationship with your parents.
Right.
You might be just as to blame for all the shit not going right as they are. So you have to take a big step back, and make sure you are doing everything in your power to show up the best you possibly can for your spouse, to your parents, give them the best opportunities, and don't shoot everybody down just because you're upset about something. You have to give them opportunities to have a say. They might have valid reasons, but it all depends on it's all situational dependent on that one. That's a very tight, tough subject.
Yeah.
But yeah, don't just bail on all that shit real quick. The last one, financial roadblocks. You just don't have enough money to do whatever. Yeah, I mean, I don't have any notes for that one because I'm still trying to figure out financial roadblocks myself all the time. But it's pretty much the same. Why don't you have money? Do you not make enough money?
Yeah, I'd say evaluate.
Is not enough money available to you? Are you in the wrong
Evaluate your budget.
Yeah. Are you spending money on the wrong things? Are you shooting yourself in the foot? Go back to mental, personal roadblocks. Are you the problem? Are you the problem why you have no money? Are you the financial problem?
The better question most likely is, where are you the problem?
Yes.
Not am I the problem? Where am I the problem? Just admit fault right from the beginning, because that's
Yep.
going to solve your problem.
And if you're not making enough money, find a way to make more money. If you need money to put into something, you either need to ask the right people or you need to bust your ass to earn it. Those are the only two ways. You can ask the right people to borrow money, or you can find a way to do it.
There's plenty of ways to have a second job nowadays. Getting people's groceries, Uber, there's all kinds of crap nowadays.
Mm-hmm. OnlyFans. But that's...
Still waiting for yours to kick off.
I'm off talk.
Back to the financial roadblocks. Before Joe starts OnlyFans,
that's
make
how
sure
we
to
got
subscribe
this
to the
audio equipment
podcast.
paid for. We're gonna have a sponsorship in here for my OnlyFans. 10% off with the offer code J2B podcast.
Oh God.
Can you imagine?
I think Tiff's calling. I've got to go. This episode is over.
Yeah, I think you summed it up. That's a perfect
I guess I didn't mean to steal your thunder, but
no, I broke it down in more individual terms, but yeah, you summed it up. Identify the root of the problem, identify what you can do differently to ensure a better outcome. Don't point fingers and find your path forward. And you know what's funny? The don't point fingers, I always heard the phrase, when you point a finger, there's 4 more, 3 more, whatever, pointing back at you.
Yep.
And I never once thought deeply about that until kind of just now. Every time you point the finger at somebody, you're deflecting the blame onto somebody else when you're probably the problem to begin with.
There's possibly 4 more reasons that you are the problem.
Yes.
No, that's... As soon as you said that, I kind of did the same thing you did and went, oh, holy fuck.
Shit. Yeah. So, yeah, don't point fingers and then find your path forward. So, yeah, that's the only... Yeah, that's the best way to sum it up. And if you want to look at it from a point of view of driving, I mean, if you pull up to a roadblock in the road, you either try to get it fixed, you pull the roadblock out of the way, you have a big enough truck that you drive over that roadblock and it doesn't fucking matter, or you find a new path. You back up, you leave, and you find another road. You can always pave your own path, but you might hit a lot of trees, and depends on what kind of path your roadblocks you're hitting.
Sometimes you have to pave your own path. Sometimes that is the only way forward. So don't be discouraged. That's where you had mentioned just go for it. Just do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, sometimes you just got to face your fears. Just because nobody else is doing it doesn't mean it's the wrong thing. It just means you're the first.
And there's always that
That
chance.
story is crazy. How many pioneers, think about how many pioneers have had to face that fear of, there's nobody else that's doing this. Being told over and over and over again, that's stupid, you're stupid, that's not going to work. Boom.
If you, sometimes when you approach a roadblock, when you get to something that prevents you from making progress, you can spend hours, days, weeks, even years trying to navigate this roadblock, trying to work through it, trying to get over it, trying to get past it. You might spend years and years and years, and then the second you get through that, find out there's either another roadblock. There's going to be another roadblock. There's always new roadblocks. But you might find out that it's a dead end. It's the end of the road. So you might have done all of that work to find out that there's nothing even past that. So you have to take a look at the big picture and say, is this roadblock?
That brings up the saying, make sure the ladder's leaning against the correct wall, or what, I forget how that saying exactly goes, but yeah, make sure your ladder's leaning on the correct wall.
Let's see. There's a quote by the famous author Stephen Covey that says, if the ladder is not leaning against the right wall, every step we take just gets us to the wrong place faster.
Yep. I think I just read that not too long ago.
So don't spend all your time looking just at the roadblock. Try to look just past it and see, is this actually going to solve anything? Or is it just going to lead me to another dead end?
Yeah, and that's all part of Stephen Covey's whole making sure you have your goals laid out so every action you take is a step towards your goals. Make sure it's aligned with your goals, because if it's not, you need to say no.
And this, I'm glad you brought this up, because this goes back to where I was talking about the management roadblocks when it comes to parents, spouse. You can fight and fight and fight and fight and fight to make things better with your parents, make things better with your spouse, to make things work. But you have to make sure it's worth it. Is that person, is this relationship that I am working towards fixing, repairing, and making sure that we can get past this, is it worth it? Ultimately, is it going to have a payout in the long run? Am I just holding on to, grasping at straws? Is that am I just grasping at straws for nothing? What are we doing? Is this worth doing anything for? Or are you leaning your ladder up against the wrong wall and it's time to take it down and find a different path?
Right.
I like that. But yeah, you have to take a lot of time for that. That's not an easy one to do.
No, if you don't know what your goals are, you can't know what direction you're supposed to be heading in. That's why having goals is so critical. And having the more specific you can make the goals, I've noticed that. And I've noticed that more and more with the podcast, that if I can narrow down certain tasks and certain things, I have a story to share with you probably later. But if I can get specific about it, I can be a lot more focused on it, where I find myself wandering and able to get distracted more easily if I have a more broad goal that I don't quite understand, or I can find a gray area that I don't know what I want to do. I can get distracted very easily.
Mm-hmm.
But if I can pinpoint exactly what the goal is I want, I can knock it out.
Yeah. Yeah, and set. Yeah. That's, you have to know what your goals are and very specific.
That's where the majority of the population is going wrong. And I will be the first to admit that I do it. Tiff and I do it. We've started talking more recently about making sure we set goals. Because when we do, we accomplish them. But when we don't know what we're doing. We go nowhere.
You don't know what you're working towards. What are all your efforts for?
Kind of, yeah.
What is it you're trying to accomplish here? Are you just coexisting and living together? Or
It's
are you
mainly
trying to-
about finances with that whole, with
Yeah.
Tiff and I in that regard right now, and setting goals for vacations or buying more property or whatever it is. And if we don't do that, it's a lot easier to just nickel and dime our money away on whatever. But if we have a goal, Tiff especially is hellbent on getting there, and she will, I don't know where that woman finds money, but she does, and she socks it away. And we get our goals faster than I ever thought possible. But that's what happens when she is focused on a specific goal.
Yeah. And everybody has to agree on the goal. You guys both need to agree on where you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have the same goals, you're leaning your ladder up against the wrong tree.
Right. Hopefully you've realized most of that before you get married.
Hopefully.
Unfortunately, that is where I think today's society goes so wrong. The instant gratification of social media. Everybody thinks they know everybody because you see what they do every day. And you only know each other on a surface level. You don't know the true person until 2, 3, 4 years into the marriage, and then you go, what the fuck? And you get divorced.
So much of it's fabricated.
Oh, yeah.
Fabricated just for attention, for whatever purpose it is. None of it's true. None of it's the actual real person. So many people make it look like they're on vacation all the damn time. They're not. They're living a boring fucking life, but they're not going to put that out there.
I saw, it was a while ago, but I saw something that said, the more you see people post, the more depressed, the more lonely, the more issues they have. Kind of made sense.
Mm-hmm.
Always you heard about the people with the big trucks compensating, you know?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Like the truck you drive.
Whatever. I got nothing to compensate for.
I don't have many other questions. I more had examples. So the first one that I wrote down right after asking, how do you deal with roadblocks? I wrote down, a roadblock for me is anger. Mm-hmm. That's one I deal with every single day. We've had an episode on anger management, and make sure if you haven't, you go back and listen. But there's many different ways that I deal with my anger, or try to deal with my anger. And it's a struggle that I will probably have forever. Yes, I will hopefully get it fully under control, but that anger is still going to be there. The fact that I've figured out how to handle it and deal with it doesn't mean it's not still there. Mm-hmm. I've just figured out, hopefully, how to handle it. So that will be a roadblock that I navigate for a while.
Yeah, and until that gets in the way of, it's it's obviously you've said before, it's gotten in the way. It's caused issues in the past, but
Work, home, I mean, anger is not good. And everybody's got anger, but
yeah, and small blurbs of it and like little episodes throughout the day. I mean, that's more like a bump in the road, a potential pothole or something you can drive over, but you're going to feel it. It's when it starts compounding and getting worse and worse and worse that it's actually going to prevent you from making progress. But yeah.
right.
Yeah, and I mean, we can go back to last week's episode that we did with Tiff, and like, I am my own worst enemy. I am in my way with so much shit. Just whether it's, do I doubt myself or whatever. I mean, the whole laundry list of shit, worries about stupid shit. It's all, I am my own worst enemy, and I get in my own way more often than not. And you just kind of have to be aware of it. And I've read a lot of books to work through some of the mental roadblocks that I had, preventing myself from making progress. So we all deal with them. We all have our own personal shit. We all have our own things that we got to work through, and we just need to make sure that our personal roadblocks don't also become roadblocks for other people, or we don't use our roadblocks to block other people.
Yeah.
Because it's very easy to take your shit and put it on somebody else.
Yeah, transfer it. Yep.
This is your shit to deal with, not mine.
Transfer, defer.
Yep.
I've got a few other examples that I wrote down. These were from, I kind of just sat down and thought back over the last 10 or so years to see just a couple different examples. I could probably have 6 days worth of examples of roadblocks I've faced in some way, shape, or form. But so one of them was proving why a new layout would be better at a machine to management and a couple different shifts. You have to get them on board. You have to get them to understand. The roadblock is getting them to understand why this idea is good. So we wanted to change the layout at a machine to improve cycle time, where the parts are located in relation to the machine, which would then change the movements of the team member loading, unloading, all of that. So all of it had to be taken into consideration. Can you think of different ways that you can possibly approach that roadblock?
I'm assuming the first thing out of their mouth is going to be, well, it's worked this way for so long. Why does it need to change?
It could be. Let's not worry about their possible response. Let's just assume that the company is lean, motivated, and they want to improve cycle times. So you bring them a thing saying, hey, an idea saying, hey, we think this way can be better. What do you think they're going to tell you to do? Or why is management a roadblock, I guess? No, that's not what I want to ask at all. The roadblock is convincing them that this new way is better than the old way, to get them to change everything. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I guess, and I'll just give you what we were told. Like we had to collect data.
Yeah.
They needed data. Give us data showing why this is going to be better. So we had to get cycle times, redo the drawings, show sketches, show them what the layout would be from the beginning, and then dry run it with the cycle time. Okay, here, this is what our rough trial run says. And then they'd say, okay, go ahead, because it's going to take some downtime in order to figure it out. or you got to wait for downtime in order to set the trial in place. But still, with changing an entire layout, most times it's going to take some additional time.
Takes time. Plus, you have retraining people that are already trained on the original way it was set up. So now there's that. You're going to be slow. You're going to lose cycle time right off the bat for a little bit until that process really takes hold.
Oh, absolutely. But if it can be proven that it's better, I mean, even a couple seconds matter when you're mass producing stuff.
I mean, in today's day and age, everybody's got a smartphone. So if you have the ability to take video and show people, like, look, this is the path that they're taking. They have to do this, then here, then this, then this, and then this. If we can streamline this process and make there be less movements in between, that right there is saving cycle time. So if you can show them.
To your point, most places, and I'm sure you're familiar with standardized work, they have the visual standardized work at the machine, so you pull that up and look at it, and then that's all got to be updated. So there's a ton of administrative time into getting all of this updated once the change is approved. So they have to verify that the idea is actually going to be better. And then getting feedback. Once you set it all up, now you're going to have to run some more trials, get feedback from the different team members that are doing it and see how they like it better. More than likely, you're going to need team members that are willing to work through the change, and if you have the right team, they're going to be anyways. So most of the time, if you're doing it right, it's probably their idea. So they're, of course, going to be willing to help you work on implementing it.
They want their jobs to be easier.
Right.
As easy as possible.
Right. So the roadblock was management saying they needed data in order to approve a new layout and standard of work.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to collect that data.
Yeah.
Do cycle times, do test runs, draw new layouts, get feedback from the team. We could have just not done it because that was too difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Said exactly what you said. Well, this way's worked just fine forever, so why bother changing?
We'll just stick with it because it's easier now that everybody's already trained on this and works. Yeah, It's more efficient right now, but if we can cut, dude, if you know anything about how manufacturing works, if you can cut a second or two out of cycle time and you're running a shit ton of parts, that is a ton of money to save. Mm-hmm. I mean, we deal with cycle times, developing the machines, the programs, building these custom machines and trying to meet cycle times for customers. We deal with cycle times all the time. And there's time where we have to add cycle time because it just gives them the ability to cut cycle time out later, or we got to do everything in our power to make a cycle time that almost seems damn near impossible.
And that's what I was going to talk about. The only thing about all of that concerns me is I am very conscious of my team, and I do not want to overwork my team. So even if we may be able to push a machine to a certain limit, you have to look at the situation as a whole and make sure you are not doing damage to your team by moving that needle. Sometimes the dip in morale temporarily is worth the movement in the production. Sometimes, however, that what you think it's going to be temporary, but it's not because you have pushed your team too far. So you have to find that balance, that happy medium.
Have you ever dealt with a personnel roadblock where somebody is too. So you have very high performing individuals that work fucking hard and push every single thing that they do. Now, that person's going to outwork everybody, and everybody else has to try and keep up with them, which that's going to destroy morale in a team because everybody's exhausted by the one high performer.
Cycle time should never be set by the fastest. It goes back to the 80-20 rule.
What's the 80-20 rule?
You're worried about the outcome you get 80% of the time. 20% is your outlier. So you're looking for that steady 80%. And so for that, you would look at 80% of your population runs at this. So what is that, the mean?
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at the mean of your cycle times. So you'd look at your machine over the course of a couple days or a couple weeks, many different operators, and look at the mean of all your cycle times for your days and say, okay, this is how fast that machine should be going. Have them all run the same exact process. And you get the average of all these different team members. So yeah, you're going to have people that are slower that you're going to have to motivate a little bit more. Mm-hmm. You're also going to have the people that are overperformers. There's nothing wrong with that. They're going to set your high scores, and hopefully that will push some friendly competition amongst the rest of the team, and you guys will drive the rest of your underperformers to start at least performing, because now they're going to be excited to get their numbers up too. They see other people having fun.
Have you ever had to approach somebody that was a high performer and tell them, like, hey, man, you got to slow down. You have to... No?
No, if they're on a machine, no, because they're either driven by somebody who is slower, so they can only move so fast. They may complain about it, but you're like, look, this machine, as long as you're at rate, there's nothing they can complain about. We're at rate, man. You got to chill. So they're driven by a bottleneck.
Mm-hmm.
Or they're feeding into a machine that is a bottleneck. So they can move as fast as they want to, but they can only produce 2 parts, and then they're stuck standing there holding on to whatever until they can load their machine. So there's always a solution. They're going to complain, but look, enjoy your little break. Take your time. You don't need to bust your ass this hard. Or there's going to be other machines where you can produce as many fucking parts as you want to. And guess what? Have a ball. So no, I would never stop them. I would use them if that's the case and they are somebody who wants to overperform. That's their strength. How can I best utilize my team members?
Right.
So I'm going to put him on this machine where I need so-and-so to bust their ass all day long. That's what they want to do. Perfect. You got you a job. Have at it.
That's the one thing nobody wants to do because they can't keep up. You're the perfect person for it.
Right. Show me how good you are. And they're going to then have a friendly competition with themselves. They're going to try to beat themselves. So yeah, to answer your question, no, I cannot think of a time where I've had to be like, you got to slow down. It normally takes care of itself.
Yeah, and I can see that. It's been a while since I worked in a production facility, and I packed parts at a steel stamping facility for 11 months before I went to boot camp, and there were times that other people asked me to slow down because, like, hey, I can't keep up with what you're doing. So it was exactly like that. I'm stuck at a bottleneck. I have to slow down, and then you just find a maintainable pace, but it is fucking I want to pull your hair out because I need to do something. I'm here to work. I'm here to work. I don't want to stand around and twiddle my thumbs waiting on people.
Right.
So yeah, you'd either be put at a bottleneck, so you can just feed the bottleneck, and that's what governs your speed, or you're thrown on something that you can just knock the hell out of it, and it doesn't matter anyway. You usually end up on the jobs that nobody else wants to do because you're the only one that can keep up with it.
Yeah. Or just on the machines that are hot because they're behind and
Yeah,
people know you can move. You end up being somebody's fucking bail bucket.
Used to be Josh, our brother. I worked with him at that facility, and he ran the stamping presses. So I would pack at the end of his line, and he would stamp. He would run the press. He would crank that cycle time up as fast as we could get it going while still making good parts, and we'd just see how fast we could work together on it. That's all.
Yeah.
That was our competition. We'd piss people off because not everybody wanted to pack parts as fast as he was shooting parts, but you can keep up, or we'll find somebody that can.
Right.
And sometimes that worked out, sometimes it didn't. Sometimes we had people fight it, but it was always friendly competition, or okay, can we do better than we did the last time? Can we run these parts faster than we did? Can we have less scrap than we did before?
And those are the team members you're looking for. Those are the team members you can only hope to find 12, 15, 20, 30 of.
Or at least find people that you can get to care about it enough that they want to make that
Right.
progress.
Right. Another example of a roadblock I had was at the one of the furniture companies I was at. We had a bad apple on the team in the finishing department. We wanted to get rid of him so bad. He was gossiped terribly, would spread rumors. Also believed very, very strongly, I believe we may have had evidence that he tampered with the finishing codes. So we worked with a company, and they would provide us the different mixtures for different dyes to tint finishes to the right color for stains and whatnot. So he would tamper with the numbers in the code book. So when other people would mix them, they would be wrong, and he would be the only one that knew how to fix them, trying to make himself unfireable.
He's the only one that can do the job right.
Right. So our roadblock was management didn't want to get rid of him because they were concerned about losing his knowledge and experience. So, we knew he tampered with the formulas. We knew it. Because one of us, I say we, this was my former partner. This was when we worked together at the furniture company. Not the one we owned, the one afterwards, briefly. But one of us went and had him mix up the stain as it was written in the book, and then compared it to the master sample, and it did not match. I think that was how we got him fired, or how we finally fired him, was we made him mix it and then asked him why it was wrong, which he couldn't explain. And he was supposed to be in charge of all of it. Anyways, so we had to set up a contingency plan. We had to start having the other finishers compile the correct formulas and funnel them off to us so we could start making our own correct book. We had to test others to make sure their experience levels were what we needed to continue moving forward. And basically find out, okay, if provided the correct formulas, will you be able to do your job properly? And then we slowly just kind of started pulling duties away from this guy and things he was able to do. And like I said, we started going and having him mix things in front of us to verify that things were incorrect. And then, oh, how do you fix this? Oh, so we need to adjust the formula. And shit like that, you know, kind of play those games with him. But so then we had to fire him and guarantee everything was going to be fine. So that was how we handled the roadblock. Set up the contingency plan. Got everything set up, ready to go. Guaranteed management that we'd be fine. And fired him.
Were you doing that from some sort of a management role? Were you in a manager?
I was production manager.
Okay.
Production supervisor. Not production manager. My ex-partner was production manager. I was production supervisor.
So you weren't trying to do this from a role of somebody else on the floor, like, hey, we think this is wrong.
No.
You were kind of in that position, like something's not right here.
Yeah.
And you were able
I was
to
his boss.
Your job was to figure out what the hell was going on.
Yeah, I was his
Okay.
boss, and we had more issues in the finish department than fucking anywhere. So we started digging in, and he was a handful. He was a handful, man.
Did it surprise you to find what you found?
No.
No. Did you?
I mean, not once I... Is it surprising that somebody would do that? Absolutely.
No. But is that what you expected to find? Or were you just not
Having
sure?
been there for 2 years before I got that position, I knew shit was going on. Being there for that long, you get inside information. You start to hear things, especially when you're not in management. I started on the floor. I hear all kinds of shit. That's one of the benefits to having relationships with your team, too. Regardless of whether you worked with them on the floor or not. If you build relationships with people, they'll talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
People want to do right by you. When you have their respect, they want to do right by you. They'll tell you all kinds of shady shit going on.
Mm-hmm.
When I know of plenty of people that do things that they could get fired for while I'm working with them, and I have no reason to say anything.
Mm-hmm.
They tell me things. They trust me.
Yeah. Does it
not?
prevent you from doing your job, or are you able to still show up, do your job effectively? You're not causing any issues for anybody.
Yeah, right. And there's that understanding with me that I'm not going to put myself in a position to harm myself or my family by protecting you. Make sure you know that.
Mm-hmm.
But I will help you in any way I can. So I do make sure I have that understanding with people. Something happens, not going to lose my job because I know something. Nope, I don't know a fucking thing. Or however it works out.
Right.
If it comes down to it. But I'll help you in any way I can.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was the second example of a roadblock I had. Management wanting or worried about the knowledge and experience of somebody that I wanted to get rid of. The last example I wrote down was kind of a two-parter. And I guess I kind of have another one. I'll talk about the one from yesterday/today. a roadblock. Here's a roadblock, for example. We have a water softener. We live kind of out in the country. We have hard water, very, very hard water. So we have to have a water softener. It stopped working. Just not working. It was full of water. No salt, full of water. So the roadblock is water softener isn't working. I have two options for a path forward. I can try to fix it, or I can buy a new one. I'm going with option A. I'm going to try to fix it first. Parts are on their way. $70 instead of $500 minimum for a new water softener.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give it a go. Usually pretty good about being able to fix shit. So
Worst case, you're out $70 in an hour or so time.
Right.
Best case, you're out $70 and you have everything back up and running.
Yep. So, yeah. Just another another example of a roadblock. Analyze the problem. What are my options? What's my path forward?
Mm-hmm.
What can I fix with that? Look at everything. Start looking up diagrams. I start taking apart. I'm sure you are probably the same way. We've kind of been raised mechanical, handy, whatever you want to call it. So I've got no problem jumping in and tearing shit apart, and I know what is safe and what's not safe and where I feel uncomfortable and where I do feel comfortable. So that doesn't bother me, but I don't have any problem jumping into shit and tearing it apart and going, oh, okay. So yeah, and then figuring out what my path forward is.
I don't have a problem with taking shit apart. It's usually when I get everything apart, like, now I've figured it out. How the fuck does this go back together again? Where are these extra parts from?
Cell phones are the greatest invention for us ever, because you do something, you take a fucking picture. You do something else, you take a fucking picture. Then going back, you have assembly instructions. It's amazing. That has saved my ass quite a few times. Take a picture of something before I tear it all apart, and then I can look at it and go, oh, that's where that extra screw came from.
I do that a lot with vehicles and everything.
But yeah, identified the problem, realized what I could fix, found my path forward. If it doesn't work out, I'll reassess and I'll have to take the other option. But at least now I have my path forward.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that brings me to the last example I had written down. This one's kind of a two-parter. Was when we were trying to sell our house a few years back. First roadblock was when we were having the house we wanted to buy inspected. They found a faulty septic system. Would have cost $20,000.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, nope. We were out. We bailed. Sorry. We had already put the offer in. They accepted. We did our inspection. They found that. We said, sorry, we can't. They weren't willing to, I think they were willing to give us like $5,000 off or something. The rest we would have had to pay for. We could have gone and seen how many years we would have made it, pushed it out, but we were probably going to have problems. Like, yeah, fuck all that. That's not worth it. So we passed. That was the option we decided. Could have gone forward, tried to have it replaced, tried to deal with it, whatever. We decided not to. Second roadblock on that was when we were having our house inspected by the new buyers. So we went and relisted our house again because our buyers ended up bailing after that first time. So we had to sell our house again and find something else we were interested in. Finally found the house. Somebody wanted our house. They had inspectors come out and they found a problem with one of our basement walls. They pulled out. Now we could have continued to list our house, tried again, hoped the house we wanted was still going to be there. Nobody else was going to snatch it from us. But we had already pushed our limit on the house we were interested in buying. And when it kind of fell through again, we were like, maybe this isn't such a good idea. We talked about it, decided, let's not move. Let's stay where we're at. We like it here. Let's instead get hunting property. And so that's what we did. So, yeah. There's a few different examples of roadblocks I've faced, personal and professional career, and then how I've kind of handled them. And I've also thrown in a few different examples of other paths I could have taken.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and houses are a big one, and it's easy to just walk away from them. Is it worth crossing that? Is it worth working through it?
It's counter to that. It's easy to jump in without thinking on a house and get in over your head.
Yeah.
Any purchase, any large purchase, vehicles, toys,
relationships.
Yeah. But we just talked about those.
That relationship might need way more work than it's even worth investing into it. It may need way more repaired than the damage might outweigh the benefit of fixing it. Yeah. So we've covered the question. We
expanded on roadblocks a little bit.
Expanded on roadblocks. We got a couple stories. That pretty much sums it up. I don't have anything else today.
No. I just want a quick recap. What do you do when you encounter a roadblock, no matter what kind it is? Identify the root of the problem. None of this bullshit surface scratching stuff. Dig deep. Find the actual root of the problem. Ask yourself, what can I do differently to ensure a better outcome? Finally, find your path forward.
And don't point fingers.
I think that's a good place to end her.
Yeah.
We hope you liked our conversation on roadblocks. Would love to hear any stories of roadblocks that you've encountered and how you've overcome them. We've all... I barely scratch the surface of the roadblocks I've run into. Mm-hmm. And I've ran into some doozies. Shit, I spent a night in jail. That was a hell of a roadblock. Love to hear what kind of roadblocks you guys have had and how you've overcome them. Hit us up, social media. We are Just Two Brothers Podcast. Anywhere you are, we are.
Yeah, hit that.
Joe, you got anything else?
Hit the subscribe button wherever you're on. Follow us, and yeah, thanks for listening.
With that, have a good week, guys.